Love Movement Podcast. Got my crew in here tonight. We got a very special young man. He has been labeled one of the youngest mayors in the country and one of the most intelligent mayors in the country. Young man, I told when he was first running, I said they could challenge your age, but they can't challenge your knowledge. And he's proven that he's together. And then I got my team back. Uh, these girls been traveling all over the country and
I wish
doing all of that good stuff. You changing careers.
Yes.
You've been going. You was on a panel at your job for when you went out. What was that about?
It was to talk about default management and the programs that we have for homeowners who are struggling with making their mortgage.
Okay.
And just helping the banks that we are in partnership with to make sure that they are aware of the programs and that they are extending those options out to their customers.
And I see that the interest rates are going up on mortgages and stuff like that. That's crazy.
It's a game.
It's a game.
Interest rates go up, property prices go down. Property prices go up, interest rates go down. So it balances out in the wash.
It balances out. So we got to talk about that with Trump. What he gonna do for us? How we gonna make this work? He said Elon Musk said he gonna save us $1 trillion.
Yeah, okay. But deregulation is a real thing, which is loosening the underwriting guidelines to underwrite mortgages, which basically makes it easier for banks to lend to homeowners. And so whoever gets into office is really going to have to figure out a balance between the two, meaning not going as extreme as we did back in 2007, 8, as far as stated income and all of those things. But they're really going to have to find a balance between the two worlds of making it not as challenging for people to get qualified for mortgages, but also trying their best to have good quality loans out there that aren't going to default and people can actually afford the properties they're in.
Okay. Well, hey, we need your expertise on it. Now, how's your move? How's your transition going?
Yes. I'm still transitioning. I have not changed careers, so let's.
What you got going
I am
on?
still in fashion. Because business had became slow. Obviously, bills still got to get paid, so I still had to find work. In the meantime, in between time.
There you go.
As soon as I get settled, I'll be right back settled for Goddess Accessories.
There you go. Well, that's what it's all about. We wishing you all the best in the world. And we want to, again, thank all our viewers and our sponsors. The Red Door Meeting Place, very nice place to have a nice little meeting. Rhythm and Blues Cafe is very nice in Forest Park.
Last week.
Huh?
I just went there for the first time last week.
Yeah.
I have yet to go.
Yeah, Stacy's Cafe in Bellwood. They have a
That's my cheers.
elaborate menu. It's not what
I said. That's my cheers.
That's your
Go
cheers.
where everybody knows your name.
Always glad you came.
Yeah,
Have you gone to
I love
Stacy's
being
before?
around
I
Stacy.
went there with Chris.
Yeah, we went one time.
Yeah.
And then we got Casa de Boers, one of the top cigar spots in western suburbs.
I'll be there after this interview.
And then we
Give you some
have
fish.
the View. The View is making some changes, and they're putting some things together to make it easier for everybody. And then we have Viola Shy. They just want to say hi. Couldn't say hi.
More ways than one, huh?
Yeah. And then we have the Blue Note, of course. And then we got Chicago Chicken Shack. That boy, Trevor, he down there at the old Soldier building. They built the hotel, and he got on the inside of that.
Sure did.
But before we move on, there's a lot of things that's happening out here with this election. Could you, with the presidential election, could you share your thoughts and your ideas? Because I know you got your election coming up in
April
of 2025.
Yeah.
Okay, it'll be here before you know
Blink
it.
of an eye. It's been 4 years almost. That's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, my thought process of what's going to happen on November 5th, when you think about how the early voting turnout is down from what it was in 2020, we need to still knock at some doors. We got 5 days left. We need to make sure that everybody understands that their votes matter. there's a lot of chat and a lot of commentary of I'm not going to vote. I'm going to sit this one out. I don't think a woman can be a president. Women are too emotional. I think that what we're dealing with when you have to be honest and look at there are a lot of Democratic cities specifically that had a heavy influx of the migrant population. And I think what sometimes people aren't really thinking about is when COVID hit in 2021, you got hit with seeing what the nation was possible of doing and how quickly they could respond to resources and different things like that. So it's like, oh, you all could have been provided some of these resources. And I don't think that the correlation of how people experienced the frustrations, angers, or trauma of seeing how the nation was able to respond with so much during COVID. Now, fast forward 2.5, 3 years later, here you are again with an influx of migrants, and all of a sudden this money comes from places, and this investment comes in different places, and people who have been on Section 8 lists for years or housing lists for years are now being bumped for different things. I don't think that the correlation of the PTSD from what happened during COVID is resonating sometimes in the messaging of how we're going to get people to come out and vote. And I feel like at this point in time, in a very short period, in one presidential term, you've seen immediate response and an outpour 2 different times, yet you still have disinvested and disadvantaged communities that are still waiting for that same relief. So it's going to be interesting when we know we need certain people to come out to vote of what's their why, of why they're coming out to vote.
And that's very important. What's their why? And there's a lot of little tricks that people play within the voting process. So now you said we're down how many million?
Yeah, so when you look in 2020, early voting had over 101 million voters come out, which was the highest in history ever. But now you look at today, we're only at 62 million early voters.
Yeah.
So where are those 40 million? Are we going to get 40 million votes in the next 4 days before the election? Predominantly Democrats are the ones that do the early voting, and the Republican Party are the ones that really turn out on election day when you look statistically across the nation. So are we truly making sure that we get those 40 million out to vote? And are we truly making sure that we make sure that those swing states get the voter turnout that they need? We've had a lot of buses and a lot of effort put into Wisconsin and Michigan. So shout out to the Democratic Party of Illinois. Shout out to Cook County Democratic Party. Shout out to the Proviso Democratic Party. But when we look at, we need multiple states to turn out that are the swing states, and you look at their early voting is down 10, 15%, that's when you get to the point of saying it's really about the Electoral College. So how do we make sure we get the win, not only for the nation, but for the Electoral College? Because me adding 5 million more votes to Illinois does not move the Electoral College in swing states.
And that makes sense. Now, so we're gonna focus in on you a little bit. You're running for re-election bid, and what are some of the things that you have accomplished? Well, you think that you have accomplished while you've been mayor?
I think at a most basic level, which is what I ran on, was breaking down the silos and shifting a culture of the village of Maywood. I think I would say we've been successful in doing that. The various commitments when it came of investing in economic opportunity, educational opportunities, infrastructure investment, healthcare investment, housing investment, business development investment, we've hit the check mark on all of those. I think when the biggest piece for me is shifting the culture of people believing that Maywood can be better, people having the desire to change the narrative of what Maywood has been in the recent past, and people understanding on the most basic level, we're not at a space where you have 20 to 25 homicides a year anymore. Last year we had 4, and none of them were gang related. We've solved more cases in the most recent history that were from 5, 6, 7 years ago and have people arrested. We just recently, Proviso East, been working in our educational opportunities. They went in 3 years from an intermediate school, which was the bottom 5% of the state, to then coming comprehensive, and now within the top 47% of the state as commendable just 2 days ago. So I think the work that we've done to pour into the educational system, Irvin Middle School just made commendable. So that's right on par of commendable with PMSA, right? So when you think about pouring into our youth, pouring into our seniors, pouring into our homeowners, we've been successful with that.
And so collectively, you got other challenges that you're dealing with
Yes.
as it relates. The you got some people going against you with the raise for the mayor.
Yes.
So what was that about? How did that?
Well, I think so. There's three candidates that are running against me for mayor. And I think when you look at one of them, this is her, fourth time running for mayor? She's run for trustee, um, but disappears right after the election. So where's your love and investment for the village of Maywood over the last 16 years that you've been running for mayor? There's another individual that's running that has been on the board for 10 years. And I really don't have anything negative to say because I do know that there's a passion for the village of Maywood there. But at the same time, you have been an elected official for 10 years. So it would be interesting to see what we've been able to accomplish in the last 4 years when you were a part of an administration that did have the 4 votes out of 7 needed to get things done over the last 8 years before this administration came in. And you have people from that previous administration on your ticket. So I'm going to go to Kamala and say, we're not going back.
Okay.
We only moving forward.
Okay.
And then the other individual, I'll just say, God bless him.
And so
I'm dead.
my thing is that okay, but now you're gonna have a mayor form of a village manager form of government with the mayor and the village manager getting paid. How does that work?
So, one, it remains to be seen on April 1st if we actually do remain a strong village manager form of government or if we actually do change what was done in 1981 when the first Black mayor was coming into power, where they changed it from a 100-year-old tradition of having a strong mayor. So the village of Maywood in 1881 was founded as a strong mayor form of government. And until 1981, when the first Black mayor came in, it was still a strong mayor form of government. So it worked for 100 years. And then when Black people became into power, it was the shift that still let other cultures and other races be the decision-making factor. So, I mean, residents will have that option to change that in April.
Okay, that'll work.
When you look at the mayor's salary versus the village manager's salary, well, even if there was a strong mayor form of government, you can look right over at Broadview. They have village administrators. There's really no different. The difference between a village administrator and a village manager is the hiring and firing power. But the actual person who runs the day-to-day operations is your village administrator. So you want to call them chief of staff, you want to call them the COO, you want to call them village administrator. The only difference of a village manager versus a village administrator is the board hires the manager, the mayor hires the administrator. The manager at sometimes can actually coast on the chaos of a dysfunctional board because the expectations aren't there because they're busy fighting each other. Whereas an administrator reports to the mayor. An administrator job is to carry out the choice of the administration. So again, residents will have that chance to vote. You can only do a referendum to change the form of government during a mayoral race. So the mayoral race will be April 1st, 2025, and residents will have that choice to make it. But as far as the mayor, when you think of what I've done, there's nowhere in the village manager's job description that says make the community better. There's nowhere in the village manager's job that says job description that says community. It's day-to-day operations, it's department running, and it's managing the leaders of the department. Focusing on development of a community, care of the community. The work that we do with School District 89, 209, 88, the Park District, the Library Board, nowhere in the village manager's job is it to care about any of that. The work that we do when we invest in our seniors, when we invest in our youth, nowhere in the job description of a village manager's job is it to do that. the conversations where I'm in Springfield or in DC or being on there's no village manager on the board of directors of the National League of Cities, right? I am on that board. I'm the incoming president for the National Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials. There's no village manager on those things. So I think at times we confuse what the role of a village manager is simply because previous administrations have allowed themselves to have an excuse of not doing what they know they could do by pointing the finger to the form of government that we have versus showing what you should be doing as mayor.
Man, so when I was working for the Village of Maywood, I bet you I had every bit out of a 31-year career, almost 25 village managers.
You did.
And it was no stability on the top. It was just, we hired one after the other, and however the situation might go. And, we always looking for the village manager, and now we're not looking at the mayor, because the mayor is not
pointing the finger.
You see what I'm saying? So that's how it goes.
So now, I have a question.
Yeah.
So were the roles clearly defined? Because it sounds like to me you explicitly laid it out with the differences in the two. So seeing as though there was so much instability, was it hiring practices? Was it not being clear on the role? Like, what was the disconnect?
In 81? You want to go back to when it happened? You want to keep it a buck?
I just keep it a buck.
So, I mean, and Chris, you could, in my interpretation of what happened, right? Back then, one, you realize the population was changing and shifting towards being a predominantly Black community. In one way, you can look at it as everybody keeps saying I'm the youngest mayor in the history of Maywood. I'm not. It was the 26-year-old white man that was the last white mayor of Maywood that was the one that was in control. So some say they purposely put him in to blow everything up so you would be praying for a change in form of government. Some say that when he came in, he was more for the Black people than he was for the white people, and the white people were in an uproar, and Black people were just so excited to vote for their first Black mayor that they just checked yes to anything and didn't even know what they were reading. So the question of the change in form of government, even on the ballot, isn't as clear as do you want to change the form of government? It's like a 6-line sentence of a question. So if you're just so excited that you're voting for the first Black mayor of Maywood, and the next question is a yes or no question, I'm clicking yes because I'm excited. Some will say that that's what took place and that's what happened. I don't think that it's ever been laid out in a way over the last 40 years that could showcase and highlight, do you all really understand, or was there a study of really what happened in 1981, right? And then I think today when you look at what mayors have to do and what mayors expect, it's not have to, right? Because there is no job description of the mayor, but to lead the board and to lead the community and care about the community. But when you say, if you're not on the menu, if you're not at the seat, you're on the menu, right? So when you think of it from the standpoint, West Central Municipal Conference, there's a mayor's caucus that's there, right? The Illinois Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials, that's a mayor, right? The Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, that's a mayor. When you think about National League of Cities, where you have board of directors, National Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials, that's the mayors. When you go to DC and when you go to Springfield and they're having the mayor's round tables, there's no village manager in those rooms. So when people truly understand that thought process, it's not the village manager's job to jump on a plane to handle day-to-day operations, right? So if the mayor's not at the mayor's round tables, nobody's at the round table, which means Maywood's not on the round table, which means you can't bring home $95 million for First Avenue and water sewer reclamation, which means you can't get a deal done and working with Create Illinois to get an underpass or overpass feasibility study that we've been talking about for 30 years. How do you bring in $25 million for water sewer separation if the deal isn't done in Maywood? You have to step outside of Maywood as the leader of Maywood to bring back the resources. The way that we've been able to get legislation done on different things and the way that we've been able to get other funding revenues to come in is because You're going out. It's late. It's time to go to this person's fundraiser. It's time to go to that person's fundraiser. This person's having a dinner. There's nowhere in a village manager's job description, nor do they even have the invitation to come, right? So I think it becomes confusing to people of the village manager's job is to run the day-to-day operations of staff. The mayor's job is to lead the community. And that does also include working with the staff to make sure that you are moving the community forward.
Okay, so now you got
Makes total sense.
yeah, but then you got another different challenge with the park district. How does that work? Tell us about that whole situation.
How you doing today?
They're getting down to the nitty gritty.
Oh, yeah.
They've been all in your
We
pockets
just
and
dive. What
everything.
time is So right now we do have a referendum question that's coming up for the Maywood Park District on the November 5th ballot. And the question truly is, does the village of Maywood desire for the village to take control of the remaining 4 parks and 2 buildings that the Maywood Park District manages? A lot of confusion comes in because the village has 11 parks, and each governing body, Maywood Park District, has a separate board, a separate taxing body, receives their own separate funds from your property taxes, from our sales taxes through Cook County, right? We don't touch that money. So when you look at 5 years of a governing body not reconciling a budget and not having reported an audit to the state in 5 years, they're on the do not pay list to the state. They have not made payroll in 2.5 months. Their parks look the same as they did 20 years ago. Right now, the Village of Maywood has more after-school programming and community programming than the park district does. When you look at all the different community events that traditionally other park districts run, but is now in the village budget to run, like a Maywood Fest, an Inspire Fest, the Caribbean Fest, Hispanic Heritage Month, the trail walk that we just had the other day. Those are things that are park and recreation, right? But since it's not in place where the park and recreation is, it becomes a community thought process to say we still have to have a community that we're proud of. So we end up putting it in the village budget. But then the question becomes, park district, if you're getting $800,000 a year to run these types of things, but you have no audit, but you have no money, but you have no receipts, and you have trustees, you have board members that have been sworn in that have never seen receipts, have never seen a budget, never saw a bank statement, yet you want them to approve things, but what are we approving exactly? And the bigger question becomes, where's the money? Because again, you also look at, that's $800,000 just from property taxes. What about the revenue from rentals? And what about the revenue of programming that comes into the park district? When you look at 3 years of bank statements across all of their bank accounts and there's not one single cash deposit, you telling me nobody paid for a wedding in cash? Nobody paid for a birthday party in cash? Nobody paid for their child to go to soccer or basketball or baseball in cash? Right. That's crazy.
Question. That's very enlightening. Who is responsible for the checks and balances? So if there's it doesn't sound like there's oversight. If there's no audit, we have the paper trail of what you just mentioned, or lack thereof in some cases. So who is responsible for oversight?
The residents. And the reason that I say that is because you'll have more residents come do public comment about the Maywood Park District at a village board meeting than they'll actually go to a Maywood Park District question and ask the questions to the Maywood Park District. As a resident body, we vote in 5 people to run that park district. If you look at the last 2 years, you've had 4 out of 5 people leave the park district and new appointments come in. So people who they're 6-year appointments that they get, or elections that they go through. When you have a board that's split in half, where some want an audit and some don't want an audit because they don't want you to find out what they've been doing with the money, or when you have a treasurer that's called the treasurer on the board that's never given a treasurer report, but on their second term, because we voted him in because we've known him since we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's the name we know. And we would never think that, what do you mean the park district hasn't turned in an audit? What do you mean they're on the do not pay list of the state? And then we say, oh, the village is picking on them. The village didn't put them on a do not pay list. The state did, right? The village didn't call and ask them for an audit to be done. The comptroller's office did, because that's what a governing body is required to do. So the residents have to do this. And that's why it's a referendum question for November 5th that needs to be 50+%. Because even if we get to the binding referendum question that wouldn't happen until April of 2025, that has to pass by 66%. So this really is in the residents' hands. Employees have complained to the Department of Labor, right? The employees and the board members on the Park District have spoken to the Attorney General, the Cook County Inspector General, the state's attorney's office. We've talked to iParks, the insurance company for our park and recreation, the Illinois Park and Recreation Association, the Illinois Association of Park Districts. It all circles back to, this is the government that you voted on, and this is who are serving you. And at this point, we're taking it in different directions to see how can we deal with it better, because even if we do consolidate it, we don't want them going to go take out more loans, because then that's still debt that our property taxes are going to assume. It's not like their debt goes away. You all took a $200,000 loan out last year. Now you're trying to do another $200,000 loan. It's a lot of questions.
So are we educating people on, because it doesn't sound like people are educated. So if it's on the homeowners, the residents, to make this decision, do we have like workshops? Are we giving them information on what it actually means when a referendum is presented to them and how they should navigate that? Because to me, it seems like pretty open and shut as far as the understanding of what you just mentioned. There's no oversight. And if the residents are required to be positioned to make a decision that determines that oversight, then I feel like they need to be educated on how important that referendum is when it comes time to vote one way or another.
But see, one of the problems that always been Maywood, they don't show up. They don't turn out. And it could be something on the table that's very important that will affect them, but they don't show up. They don't turn out. They don't, they want to stand in the background and be, yeah. But then where were you at the meeting? Where were you at when the kids had this different program? All of these different things, that's been since I was here. What we used to do, we had the DARE program. And we used to run the DARE program through the police department. And we got money from the county. We got money from the state. But that money was accounted for. You know what I'm saying? So they would not give us the money unless we had a list of things, that checks and balances that we had to go through. And Sonia Horn and Larry Connor, David Gould, Corey Cooper, that every month that money would be in there because they would give us checks every month.
Right.
The citizens are reluctant in the village of Maywood to come out and show. They want to complain, but they don't want to put in any work.
You said it, not me, on that part. But what I will also say is we did have 2 community town halls in regards to the issues that were going on with the park district. At both town halls, it wasn't just myself as the mayor sounding the alarm. There were actually former commissioners of the park district and current commissioners of the park district enlightening the residents. One of the meetings are actually still on the Village of Maywood page where you can go back and view it. It was a PowerPoint presentation. There were things laid out. If you go to consolidatetaxesinmaywood.com right now, everything that I just said and more is on there, laying out the differences in the form of government, the differences in what the Village of Maywood has been able to do with our parks, the differences of what they do with their parks. We've shared how we tried to do a management agreement with the park district for 2 years under my administration, and we ended up ending that partnership because it just wasn't working. So yes, I would say a lot has been shared. There have been a lot of different community meetings. It's just well, I can't go against him because, we went to school together. Well, that's my cousin's sister's baby's brother.
Right.
Right. So I think, and I don't think it's just a Maywood thing. I think it's just a cultural thing where we don't think to, dang, Chris, y'all did that for real?
Yeah.
It's just, I can't say nothing because, Chris, my friend.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think
Lack of
it's
accountability.
it's that issue.
Yeah, I mean, because we understood how it was about, and then we was writing grants ourselves.
Yep.
You see, and so it was a big difference. And but I it's hard to understand how the separation is between the two governments, because I feel if you work together, it'd be better.
And we tried.
And
So this is what I say. When you look at before I became mayor, who was running around helping do everything with the park district when I was trustee? Mayor Booker. Who worked on getting the management agreement with the park district and had Senator Lightford, both governing bodies, come together and work out a deal for a management agreement? Mayor Booker. Who actually initially agreed that all park and recreation should be under the Maywood Park District? Let's look at that. Mayor Booker. So I was married to the park district, right? But when I find out you have no money in the bank account, payroll is bouncing, you haven't made healthcare payments to your staff in over 8 months, and their healthcare is canceled. So now personal people owe over $100,000 in medical bills. When I see a child get stabbed in the face with a pen at your park district under your program, and then the young man who stabbed him in the face is right back in the program within 48 hours. When I see you have staff members making rants at 11 and 12 o'clock at night at the Maywood Park District, threatening people, talking about guns, talking about staff, talking about elected officials, where's the partnership in that?
yeah, I seen Shannon Kimball. He went live last week, and he was exposing some of the things or some of the concerns that he had as far as some of the people that's on the board don't live in the district and all of that kind of stuff
that he can't prove.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying
That's the part.
Well,
And so let's go there. So one, the park district had 2 vacancies, one with Jeff Eden, one with Jeremiah. The other vacancy was with Daryl Bass. All 3 of these are appointments because those 3 people resigned, right? So when Daryl Bass didn't vote the way that certain people on the board wanted him to do, he had to be removed from office. So they tried the same thing to kick him out of the seat that he currently holds, right? When you say Jeff doesn't live here, the only place you could even see that man voting is Maywood, Illinois. His house is right up the street. This man is born and raised Maywood, went to Washington, graduated from Proviso East, served his country, now came back. He's currently working on the deal to put the dome over the golf range as a business. He's currently working with another restaurant to open in the village of Maywood. He's currently working with 2 open restaurants to keep them sustained in the village of Maywood. And he's currently working on economic development and opportunities in the village of Maywood simply because he is born, raised, and from the village of Maywood, still in the village of Maywood. Check his voting record. It's in the village of Maywood. So you've deaded that conversation of him no longer being a resident because you have no documentation to prove that he's no longer resident, and you can still drive past his house. So that's just a lie, right? We're gonna let that go.
that part.
Then we're gonna say, oh, Jeremiah isn't a resident. Has anybody in this room not been to Legends and don't know that man under 30 years old purchased a building, renovated the second floor, lives on the second floor, and is invested in a business that is now celebrating going into its 3rd year, that he renovates every year and adds more services to that facility. Today has a Halloween festival going on at Legends. Had a Legends block
bear stuff.
You can. Had a Legends block party this year.
Yep.
Yet we're saying he's not a resident.
Yeah.
Jeremiah patronizes every single business in the village of Maywood, daytime, late night, anytime you can go anywhere, you're going to see Jeremiah. Is it that you don't like how he's voting, or you don't like the questions that he's asking because he is a business person and you're not? Like, how did it come from you appointed this person to now you have so much time to research where these people have lived in the past, where these people have voted in the past, yet you don't have time to get an audit done?
It's deflection.
Yeah.
So the deflection of it all is my Maywoodism. It's like, are y'all kidding me right now? We're sitting in a meeting shouting, "You don't live here," to a man that you just went and bought chicken from. And his house is right upstairs. You can drive past at 4:00 in the morning. His car is right there in the metro driveway because that's next to his building. But that's the deflection. Don't look at the fact that we haven't done an audit in 5 years. Don't look at the fact that we have spent all the money with no receipts and we're not even authorized to spend the money we've been spending. Don't look at the fact that our treasurer isn't even a signer on the bank account. Don't look at the fact that we're not authorized to receive any money from the state of Illinois. Don't look at the fact that we've been charging senior citizens for programming while we already had a 3-year grant to do 5 days of programming from them. Don't look at the fact that we're charging $700, $600 to parents for summer camp, and we already got a $250,000 grant that could have paid for it. If not, we were on the do not pay list from the state. Don't look at that. He don't live here. Well, guess what? You appointed him, so deal with it. You don't like the questions that he's asking.
Man, that's tough. Man, now,
Hey, it's deep up in here.
Yeah, but let's do this. You brought businesses. You're trying to maintain businesses in the village of Maywood, and you know, I see it. What is your future plans for Maywood if you win the election?
So I'm claiming it. When I
win
I win the
Yeah,
election.
claim it.
So, I mean, right now I feel like the first 4 years, one was a lot of foundation laying, a lot of repairing of relationships, a lot of repairing of the narrative and conversation of the Maywood of the past. DC didn't have too good of an outlook on Maywood. Springfield didn't have a too good outlook on the village of Maywood. The county didn't have a too good outlook on the village of Maywood. I mean, you're the community that had to return nearly $200,000 for a youth program because of misappropriation, right? So that's the narrative. Maywood is not the place to invest in, right? You're the community that certain people, whether they be business officials or elected officials or department heads, they to pay to play. You got to get them money to open up. So it was a lot of repair of narrative, image, and conversation of the village of Maywood that took place. And then I also think it dealt with laying out the vision of what's to come and what can be possible. When you think about when I first became mayor, there was not a single place you could go down, sit, have a meal, and have a cocktail. The only place you could have a drink in the village of Maywood was the Legion Hall. Fast forward to today, you have Duranguito, New Era, Legends, S2 Grill, all sit down, have a full dining experience restaurants. You also have Yours Bistro and Cafe that'll be open before the end of this year. You also have Exclusive Lounge that'll be open before the end of this year. You also have City Windy Ribs that's in the Navy Pier right now that's coming to the village of Maywood. You also have
Birdman.
You also have T&JJ's. That's a new business venture coming in with new developers that have purchased. Shout out to Teresa and rest in peace, Joe. But that are looking to really revitalize that entire space that we're really going to be excited about. But you also have businesses like AVW that does car wash parts that were ready to move out of the village of Maywood, already looking at a spot in Bensonville that we were able to work with. And not only did they stay in the village of Maywood, but did a 32 square foot expansion within their facilities based on the work that we were able to get done with them. You also had people like the National Cycle that was looking to leave the village of Maywood, that we not only got to get to stay in the village of Maywood, but just completed their 22,000 square foot expansion. So I think the biggest piece of the first 4 years was people plus partnership equal possibilities is what I was focused on. This next one, we've been dealing for the last few years from a housing standpoint of how do we deal with the housing. You have houses on every block, a house on every block that could get torn down. So we got the grant funding from the Cook County for Strong Communities program, where we're tearing down these blighted spaces, now working with developers to rebuild Maywood. But at the same time, rebuilding Maywood, we did a study with the National League of Cities and Chase Bank focused on property taxes being our biggest issue. It's called Cities Addressing Fees and Fines Equitably. And within that study, we showcased and highlighted over the past 20 years how nearly 15% of our Black generational wealth has been missed and taken away for no other reason but property taxes. So how do we atone for the loss of properties that have been lost for home ownership and legacy? And that's what we're working on with the Cook County Land Bank, and we're working on with some new initiatives coming in. When you think about where the covenant zone was before, the new covenant was the entire area of Maywood, right? But when you were Black in the 1950s and before, you could only live between 9th and 15th from St. Charles to Washington. When you look at when it was that way, there were 65 Black businesses that you can't even recognize where one of them was today. How do you atone for that? Those are the things that we're working on.
Well, I mean, I was
that's where the next administration, the next 4 years will be focusing on ensuring that we sustain our culturally rich, diverse community and celebrating that.
Yeah.
But how do we atone for what was done over the past 20 to 30 years?
Well, I see a lot of money that been wasted because I was doing security for when they built the water tower, and it's just there. No water in there. No,
it's water in there now. We had to get it fixed when we realized that you had a company whose job was to do nothing but use water all day long. That water bill was the price of a house because it was tied into that water tower, not into the line that counted how much water usage that they used. So we fixed a lot of issues when it comes to infrastructure. I mean, you had certain areas. I mean, literally, you had a place that had 100 employees whose water bill was $50 a month. Right? You had entire facilities and spaces who didn't even have a water bill, but have been activated for years. You had huge underground infrastructure, which is cracks and leaks everywhere that you didn't even have an evaluation done of where are the cracks. So now when you say, when I became mayor, 50% of the water went into the ground because of cracks before it even hit a household. So I would say, yep, I'm gonna let you crack that joke when you was watching the tower get built. You're getting a little old up in there, so I know that was a while. But I'll say we have done a lot when it comes to our infrastructure, and righting those wrongs and dealing with those things and holding people accountable. I'll say
Listen, I appreciate you sharing your information, sharing the knowledge. Some people didn't know that. And hopefully some of the people that are listening tonight, we want to say thank you to all our viewers and everybody. And again, thank you to all our sponsors. And we appreciate you. And good luck on your next re-election bid. God bless you. And as we always say, the love movement is going to tell you, treat people the way you want to be treated and never give up.
All day.
All right. Thank you very much.
Just got dressed, need some